Believe it or not, the second generation Honda Ridgeline is almost 10 years old. This current model came out way back in 2017. Like its predecessor, it was a unibody pickup with, let's call it, unusual styling. For 2024, the Ridgeline got interior updates as well as a new off-road trim level known as TrailSport. My colleague Luke Amendola reviewed the 2024 Ridgeline TrailSport and told you what it was like on-road. In this video, I'll tell you about the 2025 model's exterior, interior, engine, and driving highlights. I also used my test truck to move furniture and go off-road, so I'll tell you what that was like as well.
For 2024, all Ridgelines received new grille mesh and a tailgate stamped with Ridgeline in all caps. Inside, a new 7-inch digital instrument panel, a larger 9-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and a redesigned center console with increased storage joined the list of standard equipment. The new TrailSport model came equipped with a few upgrades designed to make the Ridgeline a little more capable in the rough. Honda tuned the spring rates, damper valves, and stabilizer bars to give it better articulation and a smoother ride off-road. To strike a balance between on-road comfort and performance on dirt, sand, mud, rocky terrain, and snow, it installed General Grabber all-terrain tires. The great outdoors can be not so great to the underbody of a truck, so Honda added a steel skid plate to protect the oil pan.
Honda packed a lot of changes into 2024, so the 2025 Ridgeline is a carryover model. The TrailSport is just as distinctive as before. Up front, you have this unique grille with what Honda calls a more rugged mesh design, topped with this black crossbar. Further down, there's this pewter gray skid garnish, and notice I said garnish and not skid plate. This is plastic. That happens to match the color of the 18-inch wheels. There's more black on the caps for the power folding mirrors and the pillar trim. And of course, there are special badges. You can find the TrailSport emblems on the grille and the dual action tailgate. The TrailSport model also gets its own unique color, which just happens to be on my 2025 test vehicle, diffused sky blue pearl.
On the Honda website, prices for the 2025 Ridgeline start at $40,150, which doesn't include the $1,395 destination charge. Opting for the TrailSport bumps that figure up to $45,380. My test truck's optional paint color costs an additional $455. As equipped, it has a final price of $47,230.
I've already told you what the 2025 Ridgeline TrailSport looks like, so let's go from its form to its function. According to the Honda consumer website, the TrailSport has approach, breakover, and departure angles of approximately 20 degrees, which are the exact same as they are on other Ridgelines. The TrailSport has 7.6 inches of ground clearance, just like what you can get on other Ridgelines. And yes, it does have all-terrain tires instead of all seasons, but the measurements for those, 245, 60, 18, are identical to what's on the other Ridgelines. Yes, it's true, Honda did give the Ridgeline TrailSport some off-road oriented hardware, but this is what I would call a tweener truck. It's not a two-wheel drive pickup that's meant purely for the street, but it's also not a body-on-frame beast with front and rear lockers. This falls somewhere in between those two. Speaking of function, we'll go further down the side to these power folding mirrors that I told you about earlier. Now these are great in a parking lot, but also on the trails. You can just press a button, power fold them in, and hopefully not get any forest pinstripes on them. My family and I are almost done moving into our new house, and the Ridgeline was one of the many vehicles we've used in the process. Now, I didn't get close to using its roughly 1,500-pound payload capacity, but I did get a lot of use out of its 5-foot 4-inch composite bed. I made a lot of trips to the new place with this thing loaded down with furniture. Now, to get to the actual bed space, you got a couple of options. So you can open the dual action tailgate like a tailgate, but you just got to watch out because it's not a soft drop unit, so you got to hold on to it, and it's pretty heavy. So you can do that, or you can actually open it like a door like this. Now, before I started using any of the official bed space, I actually opened up this convenient in-bed trunk. And down there you've got 7.3 cubic feet of space, and there's a drain at the bottom, so if you wanted you could go tailgating and ice down some drinks and then drain out the water. But in my case, I used it to transport smaller houseware items so that I wasn't eating into the official bed space. There are certain advantages to both ways of using the dual action tailgate. So if you use it like a door, the way it is right now, you can get to the in-bed trunk much more quickly and easily. If you drop it and use it as a traditional tailgate, at least in my experience, I found that was a much more convenient way of getting heavier items into the bed. So we would move toward the bed, and since the tailgate was dropped, it was that much closer and we could put some of the weight of the heavy furniture on that and then finish loading it into the bed. Now, I didn't end up towing anything with the Ridgeline, but if I did, I would have had a 5,000-pound capacity to use. In addition to the in-bed trunk, there are other conveniences. You see the in-bed lighting, and then there are various tie-down cleats around the bed. Then there's those low-profile wheel wells. So those meant we didn't have to Tetris things around them or above them as much as we would have otherwise. For the most part, we had an uninterrupted 33.9 cubic feet of space to use. And one of the uses for that was transporting an oversized leather chair with its matching ottoman, which we inverted and put on top of the chair, as well as a rolling cabinet. On another trip, we put in 2 inverted tables, several strategically packed chairs, and a rack full of baskets. I was impressed by how convenient and easy this truck was to load, although taller cargo made me wish the bed itself was a little taller as well.
If you like the black and orange accents on the outside of the TrailSport, you'll love the interior. There's orange ambient lighting and orange stitching on the black leather seats and the steering wheel and door panels. On top of that, the TrailSport logo is embroidered on the front headrests and molded into the rubber floor mats. As I mentioned earlier, Honda updated the Ridgeline's interior for 2024 with larger gauge and infotainment displays, but you can see how far back this truck's origins go when you look in certain areas. One of those is that updated gauge cluster. Yes, it does have that larger digital display, but that's next to an analog speedometer. Personally, I don't mind that combination, but if you're looking for an all-digital setup with a center map display like many other vehicles offer, you can't get it in the TrailSport. The same goes for a head-up display or rear-view mirror camera. And it's been a while since I've seen a foot-activated parking brake. While that does have a certain truckiness to it, it also means that you don't get the convenience of brake hold at stoplights. You can even tell how much time has passed by looking at the infotainment display. Yes, it's larger than before, but at 9 inches it already feels dated when there are other units that are significantly bigger, such as the 2026 Honda Passport's standard 12.3-inch center screen. Those issues aside, there are certain things that are timeless and likable about the TrailSport's cabin. I appreciate the high-mounted bottle holder. The heated steering wheel and front seats have been welcome features in cold weather. And I like the fact that Honda kept good old-fashioned buttons and switches for the HVAC controls. The redesigned center console has been great because I can charge my phone on the wireless pad, keep my wallet in plain sight, and if I want to, throw a tablet in the center storage compartment. I haven't spent a lot of time in the back seat, but my family's stuff has, whether we've been taking it to donate or to our new house. Pulling a lever on either side of the split bench and pulling up gives you the maximum amount of space, but you have to push up hard to lock the bottom of the seat into place. It's worth the effort. Among other things, I was able to fit a small shelving unit back here.
You can tell just how old the current Ridgeline is by looking in certain areas. One of those is under the hood. While other midsize trucks offer turbocharged 4-cylinder engine options, in the Ridgeline you only get a naturally aspirated 3.5-liter V6. That generates 280 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque. Since coming out in 2017, the second-generation Ridgeline has received a significant transmission update. The old 6-speed automatic and console shifter gave way to the current 9-speed automatic and button-style shifter layout. One of the drawbacks to the TrailSport trim is that you get a slight dip in fuel economy. According to Honda, the TrailSport is good for 18 miles per gallon in the city, 23 on the highway, and 20 combined. So far, I've been doing a little bit better than that last figure at 21 miles per gallon. No matter which Ridgeline model you choose, it sends its power to the road or the trail through iVTM4 torque vectoring all-wheel drive. If conditions call for it, that can send up to 70% of the engine's torque to the back end and 100% of that power to either rear wheel. If you know what kind of conditions you're going into beforehand, you can switch the intelligent traction management system out of its normal setting into sand, snow, or mud. But keep in mind, there's no locking center or rear differential. Before I get into the on-road portion of this review, I want to tell you what it was like taking the Ridgeline TrailSport off-road. There's some dirt and rock trails near our old house, so I made sure to head out there because I'd tested a lot of off-road vehicles there before. And since there wasn't a rock or dirt setting for the traction management system, I just left it in its normal mode and I let the all-wheel drive system figure things out. And the combination of those two did a great job. Putting down power wasn't an issue, maintaining traction on inclines and declines wasn't a problem. Of course, since this is not meant to be and it's not equipped like a Land Cruiser or a Bronco Sasquatch, there were certain areas of the trails that I stayed away from. One thing that would have been nice to have on this, not completely necessary, but it would have been nice, is hill descent control, especially for the really steep downhill sections. But with that, there was a certain workaround. So there's paddle shifters behind the steering wheel. So what I did was just engage first gear and let that limit my speed as much as it could. Now, of course, when it got really steep, I had to apply the brakes every now and then, but it was a sort of in-between solution. I would say the main thing that I think would have made this better off-road and would have given me more of a sense of comfort is just more ground clearance. You know, this has 7.6 inches, but like I mentioned earlier in the review, that's the same amount of ground clearance you get in other regular Ridgelines. So a difference there, an advantage for the TrailSport there would be greatly appreciated and provide a sense of peace of mind off-road. On-road, the off-road tuned suspension is wonderful, you know? It's not a sacrifice, there's no trade-off. It's perfectly comfortable on-road. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about this truck being a tweener truck, is that sweet spot in the middle, you know? It's a mid-sized truck, so it's not too small, but it's also not a big, giant, hulking off-road beast. It doesn't feel unwieldy. It's easy to keep track of the dimensions. Parking it is not a hassle. So I do like that about this. Now, of course, yes, it would be nice if they went a little further in one direction with this off-road, but its balance in its position in between two extremes is kind of a good thing. I do have a couple of small complaints about the on-road experience in this truck though. One of those is the sun visors. So it does obviously flip out and telescope, but it's a little sticky when you're trying to telescope it. And then when you go through a turn, it tends to swivel and bonk you in the head. So I think a little mixing and matching there would be better. But that is a small issue. Then there's the engine. 280 horsepower is enough for this TrailSport. You know, it doesn't feel like a dog, but at the same time, it doesn't really feel all that urgent, you know? I've really had to whip it with the throttle to get any sort of sense of urgency from it. Other than that, you know, it's nice and comfortable on the road and off-road, of course. It's got enough power and, you know, it's easy to see out of, it's nice and comfortable. I can see why this truck has been around for 2 generations. You know, it's not for everybody, especially those who want more off-road capability and hardware, but I can see there being a lot of people going for this mixture of traits and capabilities. I'm Derek Shaky with the Collector Car Network, and I'd like to thank you for watching my review of the 2025 Honda Ridgeline TrailSport. To find out if this tweener truck hits the sweet spot for you or misses the mark, head to your local Honda dealership and take one for a test drive. And stay tuned to Classic Cars TV for more new vehicle reviews. If older vehicles are more your thing, you can go to ClassicCars.com, where you'll find more than 30,000 listings for collectible vehicles online right now. Or AutoHunter.com, the home of our 7-day online collector car auctions.